hornpipes and jigs at one time were distinctively different. First of all, this music serves one purpose. It was never meant for us to sit here and play for you to sit out there in those chairs. This is dance music. That's the only reason it ever existed. You get around a bunch of square dancers and you see what I mean. They don't even know what you're playing. I can see some heads nodding here that know this. But we're going to kind of take you up. And these tunes were at one time a little different tempo than we'll play them originally. Some of them 200, 300, 400 years old. But they're all pretty well what you call hoedowns now. And these are also the square dances. The first one we're going to play, if you were in the British Isles right now, they call it Lord McDonald's Reel. We call it leather britches.
Sound coming back there? All right.
Well, we're playing another hornpipe now. This one, just to kind of tell you, to educate you as we go along here, this tune is called Fisher's Hornpipe, and originally it was F-I-S-H-A-R, and it was, a lot of these tunes, the first instance they have of them was if they find them in print, in a printed songbooks, and they started printing songbooks for this type of music, this country music, in the British Isles in the late 1600s and early 1700s. And this was out of the first time they see this in print. It was in a book by a man named Fisher, and it was called 15 Cotillions and I don't know what all that. This is Fisher's Hornpipe. Now this is a tune that you can hear it just about anywhere in Western civilization. They still play slower hornpipe, I guess you'd call it. This is a well-known tune called Building the Lowground. Just to tell you how weird some of these stories about these names get. Of course, it may be the truth. I don't know. We know a woman up by Carthage, Missouri, who used to live at Eureka Springs up here. And she said, well, you know the story behind that, that there were two clans in Scotland. It was the William clan, and they came over to this country, and some settled in the lowlands and some in the highlands. And so they called those the lowland Williams or Billies, and the ones that lived in the mountains were called the hillbillies. And she said, that's where this kind of musical tune.
This is called The Flowers of Edinburgh, and it's a Scottish tune. It's probably from late 1700s. And I learned it through my family, and this is the fourth generation of my family has played it. And we have run into Irishmen and Scotchmen and other parts of the country who still play this tune, and he can still follow it on the guitar pretty much as he follows me. So it's an old tune. It's the oldest one I know. It's called The Flowers of Edinburgh. It's kind of a slow tune, but it's got a lot of pretty work in it.
jigs. This is pretty much the jig time. Now, every tune we're playing, you'll hear somebody still playing the Ozarks. Now, they don't necessarily dance to them anymore. Like you don't see them dance to these jigs. We'll play a Schottische later on. You still see a Schottische occasionally. Practically all of it now is the square dancing. But at one time, when the settlers came in, we had so many Scotch-Irish in this area, and the Germans up in our area with the Schottische and everything, that they did dance these dances. Well, the dancing quit, but the tunes remain. And so these aren't tunes that we've pulled out of a songbook somewhere and learned. These are tunes that we'll still hear this type of tune somewhere when we go to music parties or something. We play two jigs here. First one's called Over the Water to Charlie's. Now Charlie refers to Prince Charles, who was kicked out of England during the Jacobite Revolution. I hope I'm right on that. There's probably a couple of history professors out there. Anyway, he first went to France, and so his followers that stayed in the British Isles, when they would get together, their allegiance to him, they would toast Over the Water to Charlie's. And this is a fiddle tune. There's 2 or 3 variations of this, Over the River to Charlie's. Then there's even some songs that have this title. But we'll play this, and then we'll go into another jig that I think you all will recognize. Second one, that was Irish Washerwoman, which most people still recognize. Oh, let's see, we've come a long way here. Let's go up into the Schottische. We'll play a Schottische. Now, this is called Doc Jessup Schottische. Here again, the names of these tunes. Of course, back years and years ago, this was the only entertainment the settlers had and the people had. And these hollers north of us and around in here, they were lucky if they had one fiddler, and they were lucky if he could play maybe 2 tunes, because that was the only thing they had. So he would go somewhere, and maybe he'd hear part of a tune, and he'd bring it back with him. He never knew the real tune. Well, there's many of these tunes that are named after a man. This one we learned, or Art learned, from a blind fiddler we knew at Crane, Missouri, which is about 20 miles southwest of Springfield. And there's an old doctor there named Doc Jessup who used to play it. So in that part of the country, it's known as Doc Jessup Schottische. Now, Schottische was originally in Scotland, and then it lost favor in Scotland, but by this time, Europe had picked it up, on the continent, and the Germans took it, and of course Schottische was German for Scottish. Then it came back to the British Isles, and instead of calling it Scottish again, they called it, so it's held the name Schottische. So this is a Schottische. Anybody ever seen anybody dance the Schottische? That's a pretty dance, and we've lost it in the Ozarks for some reason. Occasionally you see something. Over in western Kansas and up in Nebraska, they still dance it a lot up there, and it's really a pretty dance.
Let's see. Oh,
This is another type of dance called Cotillion. Usually, you do something like that in gym classes in school, where you do like a Virginia reel. There's a line dance. And the leader starts out and does something like an elbow hook and turn around and round, or right and left and so forth, and goes on down the line, and finally they all do it together. It's a line dance. But this is a tune that really came from bagpipes. In the latter part of it, I'll try to play it a little bit like a bagpipe. It's called Cotillion in A and D.
Tunes, guitar player doesn't quite know what to do. You just hit the thing every beat. A good one, I know what to do. Now we'll come up a little bit in years. Those were all late 18th and early 19th century. But another thing that came up in the early 19th century, when your population centers moved more to the west, were the minstrel shows. And there were a lot of songs and tunes written for minstrel shows. And these are back in the 1820s and 30s and 40s that are still as familiar to you today as a lot of the popular music is. Well, the popular music isn't familiar to me now. But this one's called Buffalo Gals. You'll all recognize it. That's 150 years old. That was written in 1835. Now, about that time and a little later, of course, another dance came over from the continent in Europe called the waltz. And it took on very popular here, mainly because that was also the time you had so many German settlers coming into this part of the country. You had the big wave of them that came to St. Louis in the 1830s and then 40s, and then after the Civil War, of course, they just really came into our part of the country up there. And this is a pretty Irish-sounding waltz called Sheamus O'Brien. And we were at Wolf Trap or somewhere, and there were Irish musicians. We thought, well, we'll show them how well we know this. And they'll join in with us. Well, they'd never even heard of it. And I found, in fact, they had us make a tape for them to take back to Ireland so they could learn it. And I found out from your very fine folklorist at Mountain View, Bill McNeil, that this was written by a man, a Cincinnatian, in 1867 named William Shakespeare Hayes. But it's still, pretend I hadn't told you, just think of this as an Irish. This is a song, too. It's pretty words to it. This is Sheamus O'Brien Waltz. I say that Hayes wrote that, probably a lot of these tunes are a melody they've taken and he put words to it, and that's so now we'll come up to another type of music that evolved about this time, and especially after the Civil War when things began really moving west, is the music hall type tune. And there's a bunch of these tunes, and they evolved eventually into rags, and probably had something to do with the country blues like we had. This one's called Dixie Blossoms, and it was written by was this one? Let's see. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Written by a guy named Percy Wendrich in Joplin, Missouri. He also wrote When You Wore a Tulip and all that. This tune wasn't real old. It was probably done in the 1880s or so, but this is the same type of tune we're talking about.
Just happened to think of this, that we have two record albums, and this Dixie Blossoms is the name of it, and it's the title of one of our albums. And if you're interested later on, we'll show you the albums. They're here. But this is Dixie Blossoms.
of these became what they call rags, and country rags, you call them. They're kind of a Tin Pan Alley sound, but this one's called Stone's Rag, and it was, I don't know what the name of it originally was, but it was named after a man that was on the Grand Ole Opry when it first started. A fiddler named Stone that made it popular. This is type of music that's come into the Ozarks in recent years that Art doesn't remember it too much many, many years ago. It's a polka. You get up in Nebraska and over in Kansas, and that's all they do is the polka. And the only thing we have that's close to it that you'll hear this type of tune is a Quickstep, which was a dance in the early part of this century or something. This was called Wideman's Quickstep. What we're doing, jumping you around, is just trying to give you a survey of all the music that is still played in the Ozarks here. And we've just about covered it all here as far as we know now. We're playing, well now, these are called blues, but these are not your black blues. Maybe they had some influence on, I don't know. These are more country blues, what I would call honky-tonk. In other words, some of you years ago remember at these roadhouses, you'd see them dancing like they were pumping oil, you know, and that old two-step they did. And this is the type of tune they dance to. boy one time that played a lot of these tunes from over in Carter County, which is about 4 counties over from us. So how come you got so many musicians in your county? He said, this bandstand's the safest place to be. And some of those dances, I believe that was probably true. Well, we'll play one more here that's kind of a style that's moving more into this part of the country. It's a Texas style tune, or a Texas swing tune. That's a little different tempo to it. It's called, what is this? Sally Johnson. Intermission here, let everybody stretch a little bit, and then we'll come back and we'll play for a little while longer. And then I want you all to, if you have requests, or if you have any questions or anything, anybody, jig dancers out here, fine, come on, whatever. But we'll come back and we'll even be more laid back than we've been this first one here. So let's take about 10 minutes here and we'll come back. Whatever, we'll make it up as we go here.
You ought to know this one. That's your state anthem. You know what it is, don't you?
Don't admit it if you didn't know what that was. We asked the student commons gal, I saw it, but nobody knew who it was on the student commons today. What? Oh, I don't know. Anybody else? What else? Anybody else want to hear something?
Got a request? If I know it, I'll play it. If I don't, I can't.
Cripple Creek. We don't do two. We don't want to play Cripple Creek. We'd rather play Bill Street. We play Cripple Creek. We haven't played it in a while. We don't play it. We haven't played it in a while. We'll play Bill Street. Bill Street, okay? Bill Street, another good tune. Play Bill Street. They're not too slow, but we don't know it. You know what you mean. You know what you mean.
Somebody asked for this while ago. When I typed it on here, or when I had them put on here, I could read them. But something's happened in the past few years. My arms have gotten too short. I can't hold it out far enough. We'll play a waltz here. We like to play waltzes. Now, some of you like to hear them, I'm sure. The thing about a waltz is, you notice in contests, they always have them play waltzes because you can't, if you're going to get caught making a mistake, you'll get caught in a waltz. That's where you'll get caught. Because you can't slur it, you know, it's all there. We want the down home. Down home. It's called down home waltz.
an interesting title called The Blue Mule. They've all got that steady beat. In fact, I'm just a metronome, really, is all I am for him. Just rather than having one tick-tick, I guess I look better than a metronome. So that's all a guitar player is really doing, is helping him keep his time. And to the dancers, he's just something for them to dance to. And if you didn't quit, they'll dance all night. They will. You just have to stop sometimes. We'll play another type of tune you hear a lot of are these from the 5'2" Eyes of Blue era, say in the World War I and everything. This is a catchy one called Me Too. I hope I can remember. You know, as the years go on, there's so many of these tunes, and I find I don't think as fast. The other day, my wife and I were walking before we came down here, and she said, "Gordon, look, there's a bird that's dead." And I looked up. It slows down as time goes on. You don't think as fast. What's this in? A?
This is my own composition. One thing about this old-time fiddling is there's no set format to it, and there's such a variety of tunes that some of these guys, we've known fiddlers that were hardly literate. I could sit down for maybe 7 hours and never repeat a tune. They must have known 300 or more tunes. I got over 250 on here. That shows you how you wasted your time. But it's amazing how they remember these things, and nobody reads music. Just like when we played with Irish. The Irish didn't read music, and we'd sit down and play these hornpipes with them. I could second along with them, just almost exactly the way I am with him. And yet here was 200 years between them coming to this country and us getting together with them, and yet those tunes have held their identity all this long. Now, of course, there's umpteen variations that have branched off from these things, but the main tunes like that Fisher's Hornpipe and Leather Britches, you'll hear that still all over the country.
What are we going to play?
This is called Sail Away Ladies. It's got a lonesome minor sound to it, but it's an old song.
All the square dance tunes, there's 2 square dance tunes that you'll hear any square dance you go to, and they play a bunch of others, but these are the 2 you'll always hear. One's Wagner, and this one's Ragtime Andy. This is one called Raggedy Andy. Got a fiddler from Springdale, Arkansas. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the fiddler. His name was Cotton Combs. I don't know if any of you remember. Boy, he was smooth. He looked like him through the mill, but he really was one of the smoothest fiddlers around. He just died 2 years ago. This is a tune called Westphalia Waltz. And there's a town up in central Missouri. In fact, it was a railhead for a while, and the first cattle drivers tried to get through Arkansas to get to it, and they couldn't get the cattle through the forest because they'd never seen trees before, and so they had to move it over into Kansas to be able to get the cattle up there. For a brief time, Sedalia, though, was a railhead for the first cattle drivers. But Cotton never did quite get this song right, and so whenever he played, he said he was going to play the West Sedalia Waltz. So we'll play the West Sedalia Waltz. Failure was.
I don't know.
The reason I ask is that it sounds just like the country tune that is sung today.
Oh, yeah, these things have been traded off so many times that, no telling what the original tune. Wagner was originally another Scottish hornpipe. Everybody knows Tennessee Wagner. These things are old, I just don't like them.
See, you know this is not
Kinda.
Not very hard. Can't do enough fancy stuff.
We'll slip into Texas tune here.
I'll get my good. I'll get in.
Oklahoma and Texas and down in there, and especially Texas. You go to Texas, of course, in Texas they're very patriotic and everything, and it's church, the flag, and Bob Wills. And I'm never quite sure what that's right. And if you ever go to Texas or Oklahoma, and somebody's stressing out Bob Wills, and you think that, just go, because really, that's a sacrilege. We're going to play a Bob Wills thing. It's really not a Bob Wills thing. He had a popular called Beaumont Ride. Yes. We'll go for it.
got one more, and then we play our final. Then just hold the clip. Yes, you will. All